I sacrificed everything to marry my wife, and now she suggested an open marriage. When I met my wife, Mia, 10 years ago, I was at a crossroads in my life. I had a promising career opportunity abroad, strong family ties, and a close-knit circle of friends. But the moment I met Mia, everything changed. She was vibrant, intelligent, and had this magnetic personality that drew everyone in, including me. Within months, I knew she was the one I wanted to spend my life with. Mia came from a different culture and background, which my family initially struggled to accept. They weren't outright cruel, but the undertone was clear. They didn't approve. My parents warned me about the cultural differences and questioned if this relationship would last. My closest friends thought I was moving too fast, but I didn't care. I loved Mia with every fibre of my being and was willing to prove to everyone, including her, that I was all in. To be with Mia, I declined the overseas opportunity, which would have skyrocketed my career. I spent years rebuilding professionally while supporting Mia's dream of going back to school. I helped pay for her education, cheered her on as she climbed the corporate ladder, and made countless sacrifices to ensure she had every opportunity to succeed. In the process, I drifted away from some friends and even became estranged from my family, who felt I had chosen her over them. It hurt, but I believed it was worth it. She was my world, my partner, my everything. Fast forward to last month. Mia sat me down for what she called a serious conversation. I assumed it was about work stress or her wanting to start a family, something we'd been discussing for a while, but her words blindsided me. She told me she wanted to explore an open marriage. At first, I thought I misunderstood her. Surely she wasn't suggesting bringing other people into our relationship after everything we'd built together? But she was dead serious. Mia explained that she felt like she'd missed out on experiencing life since we got together so young. She said she loved me, but felt like there was a part of her identity she hadn't explored. She framed it as a way for us to grow stronger by being honest about our desires. I sat there, numb, as she tried to justify it. She said it wasn't about me or our relationship, but about her wanting to feel free and independent. She even brought up some articles she'd read about how open marriages can work wonders for couples. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I'd sacrificed so much for, the woman I built a life with, now wanted to risk it all for some illusion of freedom. When I asked if there was someone else, she hesitated before admitting there wasn't anyone specific, but that she had been curious about someone at work. That was the moment my heart shattered. She insisted nothing had happened, but the fact that she was even entertaining the idea felt like a betrayal. I've been walking around in a fog ever since. I can't concentrate at work, and every time I look at Mia, I feel like I don't even know her anymore. Part of me wants to scream and demand to know why I wasn't enough, while another part just wants to walk away and never look back. But how do I walk away from the woman I've spent the last decade building a life with? How do I reconcile the fact that the person I sacrificed so much for is now the one hurting me the most? I haven't given her an answer yet. She's acting like everything is fine, like we can just go back to normal while I think about it. But how can I? How can I ever see her the same way again? Here's the first update for the story. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll make any adjustments or move on to the second update after your review. Update. It's been a week since Mia dropped the bombshell about wanting an open marriage, and my world feels like it's crumbling. After days of avoiding the subject, I finally confronted her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, even though she seemed perfectly content to act like nothing had changed. I sat her down and asked her point blank, "Do you still love me? Because this doesn't feel like love." Her answer, "Of course I love you. That's why I want us to do this together." She went on about how an open marriage would strengthen our connection and help her grow as a person. But all I could hear was her telling me I wasn't enough. I asked her again if this was about someone specific. This time, she hesitated longer before answering. She said she wasn't actively pursuing anyone, but she admitted she had been texting her co-worker, the same one she mentioned before. According to her, the messages were innocent and just friendly, but my gut tells me there's more to it. When I asked to see the texts, she refused, saying I needed to trust her. That felt like another knife to the heart. I poured my heart out to her that night. I told her about all the sacrifices I'd made for our turning down the career opportunity abroad, distancing myself from my family, even financially supporting her when she was chasing her dreams. I told her how deeply it hurt to think that after everything we'd been through, she could even consider something like this. Her response? She said she didn't ask me to make those sacrifices. She said she appreciated everything I'd done for her, but that she didn't want to live in the past and be tied down by guilt. She said she wanted a partnership based on equality, not one where I constantly reminded her of what I'd given up. That stung more than anything else. It felt like she was rewriting the history of our relationship, minimizing everything I'd done for her. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work. I confided in a close friend, Sam, who was one of the few people who supported my relationship with Mia from the start. Sam was furious on my behalf. He told me that Mia's behavior was manipulative, that she was gaslighting me by making it seem like my sacrifices were my problem, not hers. Hearing that from someone else made me realize I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. It also made me start questioning everything. If Mia could so easily dismiss the sacrifices I'd made for her, what else had I been blind to? Had I been romanticizing our relationship while she was quietly resenting me? Or had she just changed so much over the years that she wasn't the same person I fell in love with? Mia keeps acting like she's being reasonable, like I'm the one being irrational for not jumping on board with her plan. She even suggested we go to couples therapy, but when I asked if she'd dropped the idea of an open marriage while we worked things out, she refused. She said therapy should be about exploring possibilities, not shutting them down. I've been staying late at work just to avoid going home. Every time I walk through the door, I feel like I'm walking into a stranger's house. Mia keeps asking me if I've made a decision, but I haven't. How do you decide whether to try to salvage a marriage that feels like it's already broken? How do you look at someone you once trusted with your life and wonder if they're secretly rooting for you to fail? Part of me wonders if I'm holding on to a fantasy. Maybe the Mia I fell in love with doesn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did, and I was just projecting what I wanted to see. But another part of me can't let go of the life we built together. I worked so hard to make this marriage work, and I can't shake the feeling that walking away would mean all of it was for nothing. I'm at a crossroads, and I don't know what to do. Should I try therapy, even if it means entertaining the idea of an open marriage? Or should I cut my losses and walk away before I lose even more of myself? Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since I wrote my last update, and I feel like I'm living someone else's life. I tried to hold on. I tried to believe there was still something worth salvaging in my marriage. But now, I don't know if I can anymore. The cracks I'd been trying to ignore have split wide open, and the truth has spilled out in ways I wasn't prepared for. After countless sleepless nights and a constant knot in my stomach, I agreed to try couples therapy. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to the love we once had. Mia seemed relieved when I agreed, but her excitement only made me feel worse. It felt like she wasn't mourning the state of our marriage the way I was. She was, just eager to get her way. In our first session, the therapist asked us to share why we were there. I spoke first, laying out how blindsided I felt by Mia's suggestion and how it made me question everything about our relationship. I talked about the sacrifices I'd made, the love I thought we shared, and how much it hurt to feel like I wasn't enough for her anymore. When it was Mia's turn, she didn't hold back. She said she felt stifled in our marriage and that she wanted the freedom to explore other connections without feeling guilty. She talked about wanting to feel desired and alive in ways she claimed she hadn't in years. I was sitting there, listening to the woman I'd given everything for, essentially tell me I was boring her to death. Then she dropped the bombshell. The co-worker she'd been texting. It wasn't innocent like she claimed. She admitted they'd kissed a few times and that she had feelings for him. She said she didn't want to leave me for him, but she wanted the chance to explore those feelings while staying married to me. The therapist looked at me, waiting for my response, but I couldn't speak. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. That night, I stayed at a friend's place because I couldn't bear to be in the same house as Mia. Sam, my friend who'd been in my corner since this all started, listened as I poured out everything. He didn't hold back. He told me that Mia was being selfish and that I deserved better. He reminded me that love isn't supposed to feel like this. It's not supposed to feel like a competition where you're constantly trying to prove your worth. The next day, Mia texted me, asking if I was coming home. I told her I needed space. She responded by saying we couldn't solve anything if I kept running away. That hurt because it felt like she was trying to shift the blame onto me, as if I was the one tearing us apart. Over the next few days, I started reflecting on our entire relationship. I thought about the early years when we were so happy, but I also started seeing the patterns I'd ignored. Mia had always been self-centered in subtle ways. Her needs always came first, even if she dressed it up as compromise. I remembered the times I'd swallowed my own desires to make her happy. The times I'd let her win arguments because I didn't want to fight. The times I'd felt like I was giving 80% while she was giving 20%. I decided I needed clarity, so I asked Mia to meet me for dinner to talk. When I brought up her co-worker again and asked if she'd been completely honest, she admitted they'd been spending more time together outside of work. "It's not what you think," she said, but her voice was shaky, and I knew she was hiding something. I told her I couldn't keep doing this, living in limbo, questioning everything, feeling like I was constantly being tested. That's when she broke down. She started crying and said she felt like she was losing herself. She said she didn't know how to explain it, but she felt trapped in our marriage and needed to find herself again. I asked her if she could do that without betraying me in the process, but she didn't have an answer. I left that dinner feeling more lost than ever. On one hand, I still love Mia. On the other, I don't know if I can ever trust her again. I can't stop wondering if the person I thought I married was just a fantasy I built in my head. Right. Now, I feel like I'm staring down a fork in the road and both paths look unbearable. Update 3. It's been a month since my last update, and what a month it's been. I didn't think it was possible to feel so much heartbreak and relief at the same time, but here I am, finally breathing freely after what feels like years of suffocation. This journey hasn't been easy, but I've learned some hard truths about love, respect, and, most importantly, myself. After the dinner where Mia broke down and admitted she felt trapped, I gave her space to reflect on what she wanted. At the same time, I focused on myself, something I'd neglected for far too long. I started going to therapy on my own, which turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made. My therapist helped me see that I'd spent years bending over backward for Mia, often at the expense of my own happiness and mental health. I wasn't just sacrificing for our marriage. I was losing myself in the process. A week later, Mia asked if we could sit down and talk again. I agreed, hoping for some clarity, but what I got was something entirely different. She admitted she'd been seeing her co-worker more often and that their connection had grown stronger. She still insisted it wasn't a full-blown affair, but at this point, the semantics didn't matter. The betrayal wasn't just about her actions, it was about her willingness to entertain the idea of someone else while I was fighting to save our marriage. She then told me she wanted to move forward with an open marriage. "I think this could save us," she said, her eyes filled with desperation. She went on about how she still loved me, how she didn't want to lose what we had, But she also needed freedom to explore other parts of herself. She painted it as some kind of modern solution to a problem we could tackle together. But to me, it felt like a final nail in the coffin of what we once had. I sat there, listening, letting her say her piece. And then, for the first time in years, I put myself first. I told her no. I told her that I couldn't and wouldn't be part of a marriage where I was treated as a backup plan. I told her that love isn't something you compromise on, and I wasn't willing to live with half of her heart while the other half wandered elsewhere. Mia cried, begged, and even got angry. She accused me of being closed-minded, of not trying hard enough to understand her needs. But I stood firm. For the first time, I saw clearly that this wasn't just about her suggestion of an open marriage. It was about the years of emotional imbalance, the times I'd sacrificed while she took, the way she'd made me feel like I wasn't enough. I told her I wanted a divorce. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Mia went from apologetic to angry and back again. She tried to guilt me, saying I was throwing away everything we'd built. She even brought up the sacrifices she'd made in the past, conveniently, forgetting how much I'd given up for her. But I didn't waver. I knew this was the right decision, even if it hurt. In the weeks since, I've started the process of rebuilding my life. I moved out of the house we shared because it felt too heavy with memories to stay. I've reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I'd let go of, and even started focusing on my career in ways I hadn't before. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm living for myself instead of constantly trying to meet someone else's expectations. As for Mia, I've heard through mutual friends that she's still seeing her coworker. I don't feel anger anymore, just a strange kind of pity. She's chasing something she may never find because she's looking for it in other people instead of within herself. Looking back, I realized that the sacrifices I made weren't wasted, even if the marriage didn't last. They taught me what I'm capable of giving, but also what I deserve to receive. I've learned that love isn't about losing yourself for someone else. It's about finding someone who makes you feel more like yourself than ever before. To anyone reading this who feels like they're stuck in a one-sided relationship, you deserve more. You deserve to be loved fully, not partially, not conditionally. And if someone can't give you that, it's okay to walk away. It's hard, but it's worth it. I'm finally at peace, and for the first time in years, I'm hopeful about the future.